All right. So we're still inside of the series, Dare to Get What You Command, Dare to Get What You Want, Dare to Get What You Know You Deserve. And we've been talking about a lot, taking questions, discussing, for it's just been a little over 2 months now. But inside of all of this, I want to ask a question. Because we were discussing a little bit earlier, and comes to mind exactly what we need to get into, right? Is what is personal investment in your well-being, right? What is personal investment in your well-being, in being well? What is that? What do you think that entails? What is that? Anybody?
Working on yourself when you have free time.
Working on yourself when you have free time. What else?
Investing in yourself, so putting money into yourself.
Okay.
So personal investment to me would be, investment to me means not only money, but sacrifice and willing to do what it takes to improve yourself.
Okay. Anyone else? Personal investment in your well-being, being well. What is that?
I guess putting time in to discover who you are.
Okay. Maybe?
Okay, so putting time in to discover who you are, what your purpose is,
Okay.
get to know you.
Okay. So, how many of us are actually investing in ourselves through personal investment? So what does that look like, really? Tell me what that looks like in actual practice. Investing in yourself. What does that look like?
Taking time out for yourself every day. I can only speak for myself, like, no matter how tired I am in the morning, I developed the habit of making sure that I don't do anything else before I meditate for the day.
Okay. So, where does your ability to make things happen come from? In order for you to invest in yourself, in order to do anything, what does that come from? Yeah.
Oh, that's the point.
Oh, I thought you wanted to see it. Okay.
No.
So tell me what that means.
Well, to me, it's focusing on not only myself, but
You can
my
say the word.
Savior, my God.
Okay. Yeah. So everyone has different beliefs, different religions, personal convictions, things of that nature, right? And so we don't want to make an assumption. Is something you pointed up I didn't necessarily know. I know what you were attempting to deal with, but we want the words to be said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even when we start talking about personal investment, a lot of times there's things that we don't say to ourselves that we've accepted, that we've made assumptions, right? Before I start really getting into personal investment, so there's some things that were said, like, as if is there ever a time in which you're not with yourself? Is there ever a time that you are not with yourself? There is a time? When is that?
When I'm away from God.
When you're away from God. Is it possible to be away from God?
I mean, there's times when I'm not focused on God, and I find out later that I was more focusing on myself as Mario. Like, what does Mario need to do instead of focus? I think there's a balance. I think there has to be a balance.
Right. Okay, I get that. But even while you're on a detour, let's say, are you not with yourself?
Yeah, I'm with myself.
Right. So that's what we're getting at. So, and part of our communication is sometimes we make assumptions by words that are being said.
Right.
That we don't actually hear. And that's the way the brain works. We create patterns, right? But those patterns also become detrimental to us. And part of us and our obstacles, as we all discuss, starts very young. So a lot of your methods of using yourself stem from a 7-year-old child, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but we talked about that. We can get into that as well. But we start talking about personal investment. You are always with you. But your potential, what you can do, is tapping into the legacy of you. Your legacy, as you use the term God, I'll use the term the source of existence, the all of these different terminologies when we're using a language, right? And so that is where everything else extends from, let's say, the source of existence, the source of experience, the source of endurance, because we have to think about how we are as human beings in this realm. So when we start talking about personal investment, we have to talk about what we must personify. The personal aspect of you is that human realm of you. But achievement isn't something that's actually a part of you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So when you start thinking about concepts, you have to personify these concepts through the way you use yourself. So we talk about achievement, engagement. These are things that come out of your legacy. When we say true legacy, not just the legacy of what we've done. Most times we're talking about heritage when we use the term legacy, right? But legacy deals with the present. There's only one aspect of you that's always in the present, that doesn't move, that's actually not alive. When we start talking about your mind, it's not an organic entity. Does that make sense? So your potential for investment in whatever you're going to do, what you can do, is starting from that source of you, right? And so if it's achievement, I have to be able to personify achievement, because you have the potential for achievement is what comes out of the source of you. The potential for engagement, because in order to utilize your words, utilize behaviors, all of those things stem from the way that you're organized, the way that the human being is designed. So personal investment. So when we start talking about personifying what it is that you want to invest in, we'll get into the investment portion. See, investment, we've been taught that that's dealing with money, right? But actually, when you're talking about investing, it has to do with putting something on. It has to do with wearing something. That word vest is there for a reason. When you start tracking it back from the Latin all the way back, this word is about wearing. It's about putting something on. It's about surrounding yourself with something, right? It's being within that and how you're going to expend from yourself to something else or someone else in order to get a return, right? So before there was money being exchanged, what would you have to have been investing in, right? So it's because of industrialization and where we are now that we start to refer to that term investment through financial means. And so to personify, we got to realize that there's going to be an embodiment, right, of what is necessary for you to get to achievement, to get to fulfillment. What must you embody, right? Because you have to take your thoughts and you have to make them manifest. And that's what happens through your behavior, right? And something that we talked about before is performance is a compensation. You perform in order for a compensation. You want to get something out of performance. And performance is a sequence of behaviors, right? So that's coming together on one idea, one topic. If it's a dance performance, there's something that you're trying to get out of it. Either you're winning a competition, you want to feel good about it, whatever it is for that person, there is a level of compensation. Not just referring, once again, to money. But in a job, you're paid for your performance as well, right? And so some of you might not know, I am, PhD in industrial organizational psychology. So when we start talking about how we utilize these things, that's coming from those scenarios.
Industrial organization.
Mm-hmm. Right? And so when we start looking at that personal investment, and we start talking about embody, now we're going to look at certain intentions in order for you to embody what is necessary for you to actually reach that achievement. And that's where that investment, your personal resources, is what we're talking about. And so we talked about that center being. And so when you start tapping into how you get the outcomes you want, it starts with your ability to change, your ability to transmute, your ability to take the idea of achievement. I have to use my other aspects of myself to accomplish whatever the task may be, right? So if I have to start with that innate inheritance that was given to us through the source of existence. And so if we don't tap into that, we don't get to the outcomes that we want, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so now we start talking about initially the ability to change, because we're going to recognize that anything that we want to have happen is going to start with survival. Then we're going to have to solve something in order to fulfill something. So the way that I use myself is the main determinant on the outcomes. So if someone comes in line and changes where I place my focus, it's also going to direct the outcomes. So we start talking about that personal investment in your well-being, in your wealth, that WELL-TH, wealth, in that state of functioning, and how you're going to function well as a human being. So that embodiment, once again, starts with that change. Once I recognize I want better, right? I recognize I want to be different. Now I have to invest, because I obviously don't have it right now. I am obviously in a state of lack whenever I want something, whatever that lack may be, right? And so it starts with my ability to change now. But if I don't have the other resources, what am I changing to? Do I understand the principles that are necessary, right? So in order for me to be able to make things happen, I first of all have to start understanding what that happening, that conclusion, what it is that I want to have in my life. So a lot of us, if I just want to make more money, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm tapping into my legacy, doesn't mean that I'm tapping into my potential. I'm tapping into, I think that money is going to solve a particular thing. So now, if that is how I'm approaching it, I'm going to invest in myself to what gets money. So I may go to law school and do all of those different things, spend all of that time, and I can hate medicine. But I'm going to get what? Money. Because you told me that that produces, right? But the secret, which is not so much of a secret, is if you fulfill your purpose, if you pursue your purpose, you'll be able to generate money in a capitalistic society. You master you, there is a way for you to generate the resources financially you need, the resources in terms of fulfillment, the resources in terms of contentment, joy. All of those things are possible. So now I'm looking at being able to live my truth as that embodiment. But now, in each of these pieces, I'm gonna have to understand, well, what is my truth? How do I get to my truth? So this personal investment now becomes the way that I utilize my imagination is gonna have an impact on my truth. You see? And as you mentioned once before earlier about purpose, if I'm not locking in what I am doing to something, I'm going to wind up all over the place. I have to lock in everything to my something in order for me not to be randomly out here chasing things, letting other people put into my being what I shall pursue, because I'm not tapping into the source of me, what I can do, and starting to invest in me. You're with you all the time. And so those thoughts that come into your head, the moment you're saying, I want better, and you don't act upon it, then you're investing in something that's in opposition to the outcome that you say you want. But what gets in the way of being able to make those things happen are those personal obstacles that we develop young, when we attempt to survive in our early environment, because that's what that early brain, you gotta realize that those rules of regulation started then. And the brain locks that pattern in by the time you turn around to age 7. The brain, these are just the way that humans are built to function. And you don't review the way that you're using yourself. Because why would you? You're 7 years old. How many, you understand? You're going to be 8, 9, 10. You're going to keep going through that process, and you're submerged in an environment. So how do we get to our, and the root of the word well is wish. So when people are talking about, yo, how are you doing? Well, I'm well. That's because what you wished upon, as you track back how language is used, language is very important. It had to deal with you being in the state that you want to be in. Right? And they say, yo, do what you will. That comes from the same root as that word well. Do what you wish, but it comes from that same utilizing your autonomous will. But what is it aligned with? And that's what personal investment starts to tap into. You start tapping into your well-being, your physical well-being, spiritual well-being, right? Start looking at your economic well-being. And money is just a resource. But it's how you use yourself in order to get to a state of fulfillment, recognizing what achievement means to you, and then you align your pattern of thinking, your pattern of feeling, and your pattern of behaving in order to make it happen. So that's what you have to start to embody, those principles. My ability to change, my ability to convert to the principles that's going to support me getting where I need to go. Right? Now I'm also going to need to be able to live my truth. I maybe utilize my imagination, utilize my conscience, utilize my self-awareness, right? And then use that through my autonomous will. Once I recognize, first and foremost, what I wish to have happen in my life, for my life, we start to put all of these things together. But we live inside of an environment where we're constantly bombarded with things on the outside of us. We go to school, we learn math, but we're not learning math and how it relates to us. We're learning social studies, but not necessarily how it relates to who and what you are right now, right? Recognizing that history is what comes out of legacy. It comes out of the source, that non-moving aspect of you, right? Since the moment that you was conceived, you became physical. History is every moment, right? Every moment that passes is your personal history. And everyone that's genetically connected to you also had a history and is also connected to you. And there's learning inside of this. So this personal investment, everything that we know came by way of something that has been done. How we tap into that. So now, as I said, we got to be able to recognize the change. You have to convert to those principles, and that's where incarnation comes in. We have to incarnate from that source in us, our ability to tap into our mind. We have to incarnate certain standards and principles that allow us to make the way we use our imagination work. That allows us to guide our conscience. That allows us to enhance our self-awareness so that our autonomous will is in alignment with the outcomes we want. Right? So personal investment in your wealth, in your well-being, begins with what? A wish. You understand? But then there's a responsibility that comes up. There's an accountability that comes up. Am I going to act on it? Or my past, my personal history, self-doubt kicks in. My personal history, I'm not worthy. My personal history, I'm doing the best I can do already. I can't do any better. Right? Don't nobody care about what I have to say. Don't nobody care about who I am. I'm just going to flow. So that personal history can get in that way of what you actually wish. And now you start to tell yourself and rehearse other stories so that you can still stay in a good place in your mind, so to speak. You understand? And then you start to rehearse those stories. because you recognize that there's something else you want to do, but now I have to tell myself something different so I don't act on it. So if I have fear of failure or whatever else I may have, it's going to keep me where I am. And as we always talk about, you are perfectly designed to get the outcomes that you get. So you are using your thoughts, using your feelings, using your emotions, using your behavior to be exactly how you are. Once you say I want different, that's where that responsibility comes in. I have to be able to respond to what it is I'm asking for myself. That's that personal investment. I have to personify what's going to help me embody the tools and the behaviors that allows me to achieve that wish. Right? We're not even getting to purpose development, nothing yet. You have to first navigate these elements. And now I'm talking about incarnating certain principles, certain standards. So now let's say I take on the standard that I must be my authentic self at all times. Let's say I take on that standard. I incarnate that. So how would I incarnate that? Through myself. You see? How would I incarnate that? Let's go right back. We start talking about that truth. I have to get to instrumental activities. Your brain works upon what you do. Your courage is based upon what you do or don't do. Everything in your life is a result of what you do or don't do. Right? And that's that history. What you do is going to leave a mark physically in your brain. You create pathways. So you're perfectly designed to get the results you get. The first thing, those first impressions, no matter what experience you're dealing with, it's going to trigger the way you've been using yourself. Because that deity, that divinity that's inside of us is unconditional. So however you taught yourself to be used, it's saying, okay, this is what you want to do. I'm going to give you all of those resources to do that. So if you want to reverse that force of energy, you're going to have to plant different seeds, right? You're going to have to incarnate something else to act upon to get to a result. You have to create a new responsive process. You have to engage. This is where self-rule. You were using self-rule against the person that you wanted to be. But personal investment and well-being is war. It's a personal war. It's a personal spiritual battle. Because you're going to have to accept that the journey that you were on isn't getting it done. And that becomes a major hurdle. I don't want to say that I was wrong. I use all these other flowery words. I don't want to say that what was going isn't helping unless I'm in a state of trauma. Once I experience a certain trauma in a relationship or losing someone, now I take on a certain different persona. I take on a different level of confidence and I act. But before you get those major pieces happening, you start to, oh man, but other people have it easy. Like I said, those stories, different things we start to tell ourselves. Those become our blocks. So if I have to change my design, I'm going to have to use myself differently. So this personal investment, what you need to incarnate is start looking at self-use relevance. When I was asking you guys about investment in self, what is your personal investment? We talked about things we do sometime. No. 100% of who and what you are needs to be in alignment with what you're investing in. So if we take an investment being, an expenditure of resources into an enterprise, right? In order for you to get a return that's more than what you started with. So let's think about that from a personal investment perspective. You are the enterprise. And once you start to tap into the way you use your imagination in alignment with your purpose, with your something, with your it, with what your drive is, your performance, in order for you to get joy, peace of mind, whatever your compensation for the way you use yourself, you're going to have to organize everything around it. And that enterprise is the way that you live. Your life is an enterprise. You are an entrepreneur to your existence. Legacy of the source. You are a deputy. You were appointed by the source of existence. Humans in and of themselves did not direct their creation. So you have in your consciousness, that was an appointment. You were appointed that ability. You understand? You are a deputy of it. How are you using it? You understand? Are you getting the results? Are you living the enterprise, the life that you actually want? If you're not, you are the problem. You understand? You are also the solution. The eternal laws of nature, of existence, presents all solutions based on the context and condition in which we find ourselves. And we use a seminar. I give seminars because when you take back the root of the word seminar, sem, coming from seed, in essence, it comes back to studying self, researching self. This whole piece is about you tapping into you in order to get the actual results that you want. If everyone in our community was in a trajectory of fulfilling their purpose, establishing a purpose, developing a purpose, you won't have so many people angry. Your anger is a result. To put it in the simplest terms, it's not getting your desires met. You understand? And you may put undue expectations on other people. Expectations you don't even hold yourself to. Because it's easier to project it onto another. So personal investment in well-being, in your wealth, is about a revolution. It's about that war. It's about a spiritual coup that has to take place inside each person. A revolution of values. Because each person is born with the capacity for values. And we've recognized that there are 10 basic values that all people share.